Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for 30 on Thursdays, our bi-weekly webinar series presented by Protiviti. Today, we are going to be speaking with Nintex and also Theobald software. We will be discussing how to elevate your workflows with SAP integration. Again, today, we're going to be speaking with Steve Witt at Nintex, and we'll also be speaking with Christoph and Christian at Tibalt Software. My name is Angela Grant, and I'll be moderating, and these guys have a really nice presentation for us today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Angela. So are we ready to get started? All right, so just a little bit. Again, my name is Steve Witt. I'm from Nintex. Nintex is a worldwide leader in workflow automation software. About 6,000 customers worldwide with about 8 million users, and about 90 different countries use our software. I have 1,100 partners like Protiviti worldwide. We voted Partner of the Year for Microsoft Office and SharePoint application development, and we won some other awards for our Office 365 product, including the most launched. So really what Nintex is when we talk about workflow automation, it's about getting work to flow. And workflows, if you think of them as having three components, you have people, you have processes that the people need to interact with, and then those processes and those people need to interact with those content. And oftentimes that content is not located in SharePoint, right? You have Office 365 and Box.net and Salesforce and Dynamics CRM, and it's important to have access to all of that in the process and the workflow as you go through. And in particular, what we're going to talk about today is how you can leverage content that you have in an SAP and use it as part of your Nintex workflows and your SharePoint workflows. So one of the ways we do that, and I'll just talk quickly about the Nintex. So we have Nintex Workflow, which allows you to easily build business processes right there inside of SharePoint, drag and drop, very no-code, low-code. And going hand in hand with that is Nintex Forms, which allows you to build out the forms that are part of the workflow process. This is kind of your user interface and insights into the workflow. Going hand in hand with Forms is mobile, and then really what we're going to talk about today is the Nintex Live and Nintex connectors, which are the ability to integrate with third-party systems, whether they be in the cloud or whether they be on-prem, and leverage data and content that you have in those systems. And we do that, what we call Nintex Live is our cloud service, but we also have these connectors. And then new to our platform, if you will, is DrawLoop. I'll just mention that it was an acquisition we made back in July. DrawLoop is a leading App Exchange app for Salesforce.com that does document assembly and document creation. So taking metadata out of Salesforce as part of a workflow and assembling it into a document, whether it be a Word document, a PDF document, etc. So we're happy to have that addition to our productivity platform. So let's talk about first connecting to cloud content, because I mentioned Nintex Live is the way that we do that. So today in Nintex Live we have about 145 actions. Primarily, or all of them, are for connecting with other cloud-based systems. So that includes Salesforce.com, Dynamics CRM, Office 365, Box.net, Dropbox, DocuSign, Amazon, Azure. You see all of those are primarily, or they are, cloud-based systems that we integrate with. And we built these connectors that allow for the very easy to drag and drop and configure, like if you wanted to take a document from on-premise and move it to Office 365, you can do that. Or if you needed to update a record or do any type of CRUD operations in Salesforce.com or Dynamics CRM, we provide these actions, Nintex Live actions, that allow you to do that. So we provide those today. Those are in addition, and again, you just download those from Nintex Live, and you can use them in your on-premise environment. You can use them in Office 365 as well. Now, when connecting with on-premise content, it's a little bit different, right? Because with on-premise, you have the ability to do much different than the cloud. Is you have the ability to do a lot of customizations. You have, customers have different versions of the system to support, as well as you might even be integrating with some homegrown solutions as well. So our workflow product provides a number of different actions to include like executing SQL, right? If you want to go direct to any ODBC database, we have actions for that. You can also call web services and interact with, any standards-based web service using, SOAP APIs and REST APIs and things like that. Soft on-prem technology, CRM on-prem or project. So that gives you some different tools to these other systems, but where you want that ease of use of maybe like a Nintex Live connector, where it's already kind of a pre-wrapped, you don't have to call the web service, you don't have to maybe necessarily work with complex XML. We have third-party connectors. And third-party connectors created by our technology partners leverage our API, and they build out the actions that you would need to integrate with the back-end system, in this case, SAP. So partners like Theobald have extensive knowledge of working with SAP, right? And what you'll hear from Christoph is, they make interfaces for all different types of integration with SAP. So rather than Nintex coming in and saying, we're going to build these connectors, we turn to partners like Theobald who have the knowledge and expertise around SAP to actually build it out, and then you can put the actions into Nintex and use it in your workflow. So making integration with SAP really easy. So with that, that is my setup for Theobald. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Christoph here to talk a little bit about their company, and then again, the purpose of this is to get in a demo and see this in action.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. This is Christoph with Theobald Software. Theobald Software is just over 10 years old. We are a company headquartered in Stuttgart, Germany, with a sales office here in Seattle, where I work. And we specialize in SAP connectivity. And that's all we've been doing basically in these last 10 years that we've been in business. And that is still today our main focus. So SAP interface technology is where our know-how and expertise is, and we have grown over these 10 years to about 1,800 SAP customers. You see a sampling of that on the right. Really all sizes of businesses, large SAP customers, small SAP customers across really any industry. And we partner with companies like Nintex, for instance, to bring new and innovative SAP integration solutions to the market. Our main integration scenarios include ETL and data warehousing scenarios. This is where customers want to extract data from an SAP system and then move it into a different data warehouse environment to do additional reporting, for instance, or analysis on SAP data, but also business process integration scenarios. And that's what we will talk about and demonstrate to you here, where you have SharePoint users that want to interact with an SAP business process. And the example and demo that we prepared for you is around a travel expense scenario. That's a very common scenario for many of our customers. Employees go to a SharePoint site, they fill in a travel request. The travel request is routed to a manager for approval, and then I can go on my trip if it's approved. And then when I'm done with my trip, I come back into SharePoint and fill out my travel expense reports. So a very common scenario that I think showcases the use of Nintex Workflow as well as Forms together with our SAP connectivity solutions quite well. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Christian, who will demonstrate this travel expense scenario in a live SharePoint environment to us.
Great, thanks, Christoph. And I'm giving you control, making you presenter. Christian, we can see your screen, but we can't.
Hear me? Yeah, sorry. Hello, everybody, again. So this is Christian from Theobald Software. So as my colleague Christoph said, what we prepared for today's web session is a travel request scenario for SAP. What you see here on my screen is a SharePoint list, so you should be familiar with SharePoint. So this is the basis for our list workflow, where the SAP integration is triggered so far. So when I want to start a new travel request, I just have to make a new item here, and I'm going here to Nintex forms, where I have to enter the data. So let's say I want to travel to Berlin. Destination country is Germany. The trip start should be September the 18th. Starting time, it's about 6 in the morning until 7 in the evening. The travel purpose shall be a business meeting. So the next field is a nice one, because this one is directly connected to the SAP system. So if I choose here value for alternative cost assignment, it's getting me a list directly from the underlying SAP system. It's created by a software from Theobald. It's called the BCS connector, and this software creates an external content type containing all the cost center data from a SAP table called CSKT. That's a master cost center table from the underlying SAP system. So I can choose here one alternative cost center, this one, and let's say for 100%, it shall be assigned to this cost center. In the next few fields, I can put in estimated costs for flights, hotels, or other expenses. So for this demonstration here, I just put in some data for other expenses. Let's say I want to buy a train ticket for this business trip, and this costs $200. And then I save this form. So in this demonstration, I have to trigger the workflow manually. And then it's posted. You see the workflow here. Then it's posted to the responsible manager. So meanwhile it is posted, we can take a closer look on the underlying workflow. So 1 second, I go to the settings here and to the manage workflows. That's the one. So as you see here, it's a multi-stage approval scenario. So it goes to different stages. So first it's submitted, and a notification is sent to the initiator. Then in the recalculating stage, all the estimated costs are calculated and summed up. So in the manager approval stage, it's sent to the manager. He can reject or approve it. The crucial part for SAP integration is this stage here, the approved stage. So after the workflow was approved by the manager, it's sent a notification to the initiator that it was approved, and after that the personnel number which is necessary for SAP integration is getting from the underlying Active Directory. So the employee doesn't have to enter this personnel number for itself. So, and after that, it's checked if an alternative cost assignment has been entered. So if that's the case, then a so-called custom action takes place. And if if it's not, another custom action with different input parameters takes place here. So just take a look here in the custom function here. This custom action I show you here for SAP integration. So in the up here you define a service application which connects you to the underlying SAP system. So if you are familiar with SAP, in the next field you put in the SAP function or BAPI, which is called. So you can call every remote enabled SAP function or BAPI here in this custom action. With this button, the parameters of the custom of the function module or BAPI is loaded, and here in the next few fields, input, changing parameters, tables, and so on can be filled with input data. So, for example, here the changing parameters are directly connected to the SharePoint list, like here the personal number, the travel destination, a purpose, and so on. Some fields have to be formatted into the right format because SAP needs a certain format for its fields. So, for example, here the date is formatted, and the one for the country we've seen before in Nintex forms. So yeah, you have to fill in this input parameters, and for output I choose the trip number, which is generated by the SAP system, so that you can see the trip number in your SharePoint list afterwards. So that's basically it. SAP integration. After it's this custom function is called, the trip number is updated in the SharePoint list, and a new item is created in another list. That's what Christopher said at the beginning. Actually, it's two workflows, one for the travel requests and one for the travel expenses. So for today's demonstration, we just concentrate on the travel request workflow. To the list. Meanwhile, it should be at the managers. So as you see here, it's under review. That means the manager can approve it. So I switch to the manager screen, his task list here, and open the task. So another Nintex form is triggered here for the approval process. So I say approve. Okay. And save it. So that takes some time. Meanwhile, I can show you how the integration works. So let's take a look in the SAP system. Just 1 second. So that's the SAP system which is connected to this workflow. So we have a transaction here, a trip, that's the travel manager, where all the travel management data is stored. So I open this one. Then I have to catch the right personal number. That's this one. So and as you say here, we have a new entry here for the one I just created for Berlin. Just open it. And as you see here, this is the exact data I entered in the Nintex forms. So start, end of the trip, starting time, end time, destination, the country, the purpose, and the alternative cost assignment. here on this cost center 2,200 and the estimated cost of $200 US. Yeah. So that's it basically. So the next step would be the travel expense scenario. So when this one is finished, another list entry item in another list is created, where you can create a travel expense travel expenses for this prior travel request afterwards. So I don't know, do we have a bit more time to take a look on the travel expenses as well, or are we finished yet? I'm not sure if we have still time for it.
Yeah, I think we have a couple minutes if you want to show this one real quick.
Okay, so the travel expenses workflow is similar. So just 1 second. You just have to edit the item here, and as you see here, a few fields are already filled by the travel request scenario we've seen before, like the trip number, which was generated, a travel destination, trip start, and so far the alternative cost assignment you have to fill in again. Let's say here. And now in the receipt section you can enter every expense types you like for this travel request. In this case, I say I want to put in expense type for train, say $200, and one more for yeah, maybe car rental, $100 more. And I can save this. So I have to trigger this manually as well. So meanwhile, we can take a look on the underlying workflow. So this one's the travel expenses workflow. It's similar to the first one, but goes through different stages. So here, in the first few steps, the costs for the expense types are calculated, and the grand total in the SharePoint list is set, and then it also goes through different approval steps here. So after the successful approval, it's also posted here to the SAP system. So it's different here if we have already a trip number from a prior generated travel request, or we have no trip number. So we use different function modules in SAP. So that's the reason we have a condition here for checking the trip number, and we're checking the alternative cost assignment here as well. And it's another SAP function module here. We can take a short look with other input parameters. So let's go back to the SharePoint list. Meanwhile, it should be posted to the manager. It's in the reviewing status. I switch back to the manager screen, to his workflow tasks. As you see here, there's a new task in his list. I can say approve as well. I just close this connection here, otherwise the personal number might be blocked. I think it takes some time. Now it's completed. Let's take a look in SAP. So I use another transaction now it's the travel expense manager, and I don't know, I think it's this one for Berlin. With a double click you see all the data. You see the date and the time, the purpose, the location, and the travel expenses I entered in Nintex forms for train and car rental, you say here. So, and the alternative cost assignment for sure. So as you see, the data was posted in both cases to the underlying SAP system, and that's basically our our example for SAP integration here. So yeah, Christopher, do you want to add something, or maybe there are any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Christian, for the great demo. So hopefully you were able to see that how these custom actions, really what we're providing here into the workflow, into the Nintex Workflow Designer, enable a direct, really a very direct and straightforward interaction with your SAP ERP system. In this case, to capture a travel request or to create an expense report. I think that's really the compelling part of this solution. These custom actions are can be configured, so it does not require any coding. So
yeah, and this is Steve. Just it might be worth talking about, either Christian or Christoph, the kind of the three different. You have three different actions, right? The call SAP function, table, XQL, and maybe just talk about the differences and maybe where you use one over the other, because it does provide you with some flexibility and different options as you build out your workflows.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Do you want me to cover that, Christian?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so if you maybe if you close this dialog, this is the call SAP function. Over on the left, you see in the menu for all the different workflow actions, the three custom actions that we provide as part of our product. There is Read SAP Table, very simple action. You basically specify a table in SAP that you want to read from. Common scenarios might be you might want to read a list of cost centers, or you might want to read from a list of countries or personnel numbers. So it's the perfect action for that type of scenario. It's very fast, and you usually get a list back with maybe 3-4 columns that you can then assign to a workflow variable and work with those values in your workflow. The most important one is right below, which you've seen featured in the workflows, is called SAP, or call SAP function. This allows you to call an SAP function module. There's plenty of function modules in SAP already. Sometimes they're also called BAPIs, or for business APIs. And with those function modules and BAPIs, you can post transactions back to SAP, meaning you have write access to SAP. In our example, we used it to post a travel request, to post a travel expense, but you can also use it to read data. So it works both ways, read and write. And there's literally hundreds, thousands of these function modules available. And sometimes the trick is to find the right one. But if you've worked with SAP interface technology before, you're probably familiar with some of these. We have some samples out there as well, like this one that you just saw, that help you get a start on that one. So once you've identified the right function module, you just specify the input and output parameters. Oftentimes the input parameters are mapped to a list in SharePoint, like a request list. And then the output parameters are, confirmation messages, the posting was successful, or you get a number back, maybe a number of a trip request or a number of a purchasing document or whatever your scenario is. And you can assign that and work with that in your workflow. So it's completely no code. Everything is configurable in your custom action. And then the third custom action we have is called Query XQL. And that actually combines the function of the other two that I just mentioned. So it also gives you the ability to read from a table or to call an SAP function. But the way you go about it is a little different. You have to specify a query statement, very similar to a T-SQL query, in fact, to read from a table, like you would say, select field list from table. Or you can also call a function module. So it gives you a little more flexibility in terms of what you do in SAP, but you also have to know the query syntax to do that. So these are the three custom actions. You can download our product free for a trial period if you want to give these custom actions a try. They install in SharePoint as a WSP package. And then show up in your workflow designer as you see it here on the screen.
Excellent. That was great. Angela, were there any questions? I know we're a couple minutes over, but just to wrap up, if there are any questions.
Nope, I don't see any questions right now. Folks, if you have any questions, we are a couple minutes over, but if you have any questions, go ahead and enter those into the question box. And you can also follow up with Steve or I. Steve is on Twitter at SPLumberjack, and you can also reply back to the follow-up email that we'll be sending out, and we'll make sure that our friends at Nintex and Theobald can answer those questions if you have any. Okay, and I still don't see any questions in the question box, so we'll be in touch upon follow-up. Thanks again, Steve, Christoph, and Christian for joining us today, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Angela.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.